Hi, everyone. My name is Jackie Cooper. I'm with the GBA Talk Show, and we'd like to welcome you today to the Internet Governance Forum, Blockchain and Assurance Dynamic Coalition, the Introduction to Blockchain Technology for Global Leaders. We are here at the GBA virtual booth, and we welcome you, and we are here to answer any and all of your questions during our time with you. So you can contact us today at the gbaglobal.org. There is a QR code, and if for some reason you don't want to use the QR code, you can just type in gbaglobal.org. The Government Blockchain Association is a global association that has over 4,000 members, and the GBA members work in over 500 government offices around the world. They consist of both individuals within the government as well as businesses and thought leaders around the world. Today, the presenters are both myself, Jacqueline Cooper, Eric.Guthrie, and Allison Maffitt. So my background as an attorney is also one as an educator, and I'm also an author. And I believe that education is critical in our world because the technology that we are talking about today is evolving, and we definitely need to help the next generation of those that are going to be working in this space. I'm the founder of the Blockchain Legal Institute, and this is a centralized library for the decentralized resources that we find within our world. So definitely welcome, and visit the Blockchain Legal Institute so you can find a variety of resources in artificial intelligence, Bitcoin, Ethereum, blockchain use cases, you name it, we have the information, and it's evolving. I'm also the author of the Bitcoin Cinderella, which is a blockchain adventure series. It's for families, and it covers a variety of topics within our space. And all three of us are co-chairs of the GBA Legal Working Group, and with the variety of backgrounds that we have, we're able to discuss and lead and assist in the development of the blockchain maturity model and the legal issues that evolve in our space.
And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I am Eric.Guthrie. I am an attorney that's working in the DC area. I've practiced law for over 25 years. I'm the author of two books, two award-winning books. The first one is called Diversify or Die, which I wrote in 2016. It won 2 book awards. And the author of Blockchain or Die, of course, very relevant to this topic, which I published in 2019, that became an Amazon #1 bestseller 5 times and winner of 3 book awards. My website right there on the screen is blockchainordie.org. I'm also the president of Better Me, Better We, where we are a global training and consulting company. I've trained in and consulted in over 10 countries around the world, and I look forward to doing more global trainings as blockchain technology continues to grow and expand. I'm the director of training programs for the Government Blockchain Association. I'm a partner in the Cogent Law Group, and as Jackie said, I'm also a co-chair of the GBA Legal Working Group.
Hi, I'm Allison Maffitt. I'm also an attorney in the DC area, and I practice in the fintech and blockchain spaces, and I accidentally stumbled on this world and really, really enjoy it. And part of this is I'm working with the GBA, co-designing the digital asset management course, and I'm an assessor for digital assets and legal for the blockchain maturity model with the GBA. And I'm an attorney with the Cogent Law Group and also a co-chair of the GBA Legal Working Group. So today we're going to talk about the fundamental blockchain legal issues, and we're going to focus on a high-level discussion about the global blockchain legislation and the regulations and the need for legal industry standards.
So blockchain technology, we're going to be describing it in 3 different ways. And so who would like to go first?
I will. So I always start with, it's a more secure, it's a more efficient way to share and store data. and any type of information. I, as I said before, came upon this almost accidentally, and really, I come from a data analyst background. And when I discovered blockchain, I can't explain the euphoria that I felt, because it is an efficient way. It's a way to securely store information. And with that, it causes quite a few legal issues.
So I'll hop in. Being both a lawyer as well as an educator, I sometimes have to explain what blockchain is to children. So sometimes the definition is very simple. And for those who are young, I explain to them that blockchain can either be like Legos, or what's even better is thinking of it like a train, because every car in the train has a certain number of seats. And then when that car gets full, you have to go to the next car in order to find a seat. And so blockchain is similar to that, in the fact that there might be a certain amount of information that's stored on each block. And when that information and that block is full, the information is going to go to the next block. Again, there's different variations of this. For the adults who I talk to, what I really enjoy about blockchain is the idea that it is decentralized, and the idea that it is connected to nodes or computers, and that information is transparent, and that once it is put into a block, it is what we call immutable, meaning that it can't be changed. And there's a variety of different types of blockchains, both public, private, and hybrid, and more information to come depending upon your level of understanding. Eric, how do you describe blockchain?
Thanks, Jackie. So I describe blockchain with common things we do every day in our lives. And whenever I train to the blockchain uninitiated, I have these 5 icons I use to describe blockchain technology. So if you understand how a house is bought and sold, how money is transacted, what a padlock does, how a checkbook works, and how a cashier works — there's no icon for a cashier, so I use a shopping cart — I can describe to you how blockchain technology works in less than a minute. So we have houses that we buy and sell. And when we buy and sell houses, we get what's called title insurance that passes good title. So if there is a problem with title, if someone has some type of lien or encumbrance on the title, good title will not pass. It will stop before it's passed in the ultimate sale. So making sure we know what's going from buy to seller, buy to seller, buy to seller is an important part of this story. Now, let's take out the house and let's put $1 in its place. When $1 is transacted, right now, it's going through centralized resources, but in a decentralized world, we have to know how it passes. So when it goes from buy to seller to buy to seller, buy to seller, we need 2 things. We need security, and we need a way to track that dollar. Well, the padlock is security, and things like the public key and the private key to make sure that there's double locks on our transactions is the first way to describe the security. The second way is on the checkbook ledger. Now, for those of us that still use checkbooks, there are ledgers that we used to use to put in the money coming in and the money going out. Okay, so imagine that dollar going from buy to seller, buy to seller, buy to seller is put in a checkbook ledger. But here's the catch: it's not a private checkbook ledger. It's a global checkbook ledger that everybody can see. That way, if someone tries to change the numbers, if they take a pencil with an eraser and try and erase it, the global community with access to that ledger will stop them. And they'll say, you're trying to commit fraud and you're trying to game the system. Now, you may ask, well, how do we process these transactions? Well, imagine you go to a supermarket and you're buying things for your house. You're buying food, you're buying drink, you're buying everything you need to run your household. Well, how do you process that transaction? Through a cashier. The cashier is the person that makes the transaction go from in-store to the next place it's going to go, which is wherever it's going out of the store. So the cashier is the real-life version of a miner. And the miners are the one that mine transactions and make sure that the process is moving forward and transactions are being verified and they're being put forth from buyer to seller. So those 5 icons, the house, the dollar, the padlock, the checkbook ledger, and the cashier, are how, in a big picture, how blockchain technology works. Now, let's kind of bring this home. Blockchain technology has 5 properties. They're decentralized, it's a distributed ledger that has a safe and secure ecosystem. Mining is used to validate transactions, and transactions are immutable. So basically, all of our definitions that we gave from 3 different perspectives have all these 5 properties. And that's how we define blockchain technology. Now, this is a very basic level. There are much more in-depth ways to discuss blockchain technology. Some of them are through decentralized, centralized, or hybrid blockchains, which is more involved. And we may get to some of that. But at its core, that's how we define blockchain technology. Back to you, Jackie.
So the topics for discussion today, we're going to be focusing on 3 different areas. Fundamental blockchain legal issues, that is the first topic, and I'll be starting us off on that. And then we have 2 other major areas that we want to talk about. But for those that are listening or watching our conversations, if you have questions, reach out to us. I mean, that's why we're here. And also become a member of GBA. You know, this whole conversation is evolving, and we're here to support the businesses. So fundamental blockchain legal issues. The one thing that you have to think about, depending upon what part of the blockchain are you in? Are you a company that is just starting, thinking about navigating over to blockchain? Are you already within blockchain? And are you an individual that has an idea and you want to create? So there can be a lot of different layers to the legal issues. One of the things that you always have to think about is if you're a company and you haven't formed yet, is how and where are you incorporating? And within that framework, where do you want to incorporate? You know, if you're in the States, what state do you want to incorporate? If you're in or do you want to incorporate in other parts of the world? So there's going to be different countries that you're going to need to be thinking about what their regulations are. Some of the areas around the world are very pro blockchain formation and use, both within the products and services, and some have more restrictions. So you need to be aware of that. Even if you incorporate in one country, if you're doing business outside of that country and you're doing business in another community, those laws are going to impact you. So for example, if in the United States and you are going to be doing business in the EU, you're going to need to know about their privacy, their, you know, the AI and anything else that they might be navigating legislation-wise, because you might need to be involved and comply with that. So some of the generic areas that you're going to need to be thinking about is definitely regulatory compliance. You're definitely going to have to think about data privacy. Again, different countries have different rules with that. Intellectual property, you're going to have to think about, again, how are you navigating that area? Consumer protection, token classification, if you're going to be using a currency, whether it's a utility token in the United States and SEC, smart contract legality. So those are some of the areas that I was going to say will start you off, but in fact, they're heavily layered. Taxation and crowdfunding. You know, again, those are different areas that all have legal implications. And depending upon how you're fundraising for your company, what the product is that you're selling or the services that you provide, there's always legal overtone to it. So Allison and Eric, what would you like to add to that? Since I know that both of you are involved with both the clients as well as research and also education.
I'll jump in. I think one of the most important pieces before you go too far down the road, start to work with an attorney, start to map out what might be an issue. And that can actually help when you're developing the technology, and you can guide developers, you can guide the business strategy to make sure you are complying with the laws. And one of the ones that will overlap with almost everything is anti-money laundering and know your customer. So that's just something you always have to have in the back of your mind, because inherently blockchain provides avenues to both make sure you know your customer and make sure that you are following anti-money laundering, but also if you're not doing what you should be doing, there are opportunities for bad actors. So mapping out your legal obligations before you go too far down the business development is very important.
Well, you guys didn't leave much for me to say, so I mean, you guys covered a lot of stuff.
Sorry, Eric.
That's okay. It just makes me even think even harder. So if you guys see smoke coming from my head, that's why. So this is what I'll say. I mean, 100% agree with my co-counsels here. Here's what I'll add. And Jackie mentioned, knowing your country's laws. You really should research what your legal requirements are from a legislative side and from a regulatory side. Now, some countries are more heavily regulated and have more laws than others. The US has probably the most stringent, most involved laws and regulations involving blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies. UK probably being second, or the EU probably being second. But every country has varying levels of laws. And I mean, you can research that on your own for general knowledge, but I concur with Allison. You need to get an attorney, especially if you're one of the more heavily regulated countries, or you want to do business in a heavily regulated country. So what does that mean? Let's say you want to have a security token or a cryptocurrency, and you want to, open it up to the entire world, which includes selling to the United States. Well, maybe your country is not heavily regulated, but once you engage a U.S. citizen in sale or some type of, institutional contractual relationship, now you're in a jurisdiction of the SEC. So you really do need to know not just where you're located, but where your client and your business could end up. And you have to be compliant with those laws and those countries as well.
I would also add, and I don't remember if we did talk about this, but taxation is critical. You need to be thinking about that. And as Allison mentioned too, you also need to definitely think about the licensing and regulation. And just like you mentioned, Eric, there's a lot of different levels to this, and that's actually why the Blockchain Legal Institute was created, is to be a centralized library for, around the world, both from the state perspective to the global perspective. And it's definitely a resource library to start where you're researching, and then to take it the next level when you actually talk to your attorneys as well. Because it is important as a consumer to know the critical questions to ask, as well as to comply with. So anything else on this topic? Otherwise, we have 3 other topics that we're going to be discussing.
I think we're ready to move on to topic number 2.
I'm ready for that. But if there's any questions about that, we're going to have our emails on the last slide. So stay tuned. So don't leave yet, because if you want to contact us, that's in the last slide. So the next topic for discussion is a high-level discussion about global blockchain legislation and regulations. Now, I have had clients in training all over the world, and in writing my next book, the second version of Blockchain or Die, I've done a great deal of research in global legislation and regulations. And here's why. Because when I wrote Blockchain or Die, the first edition, in 2017, and when it was published in 2019, there wasn't that much out there really from a global standpoint. A few countries were really leading the way, but not very many. Now, it's a much higher bar, and much more information and much more legislation is out there when it comes to blockchain technology. So I'm just going to give you 3 examples of countries that are really leading the way in 3 different regions of the world. So it really works out very well for a UN conference. And then we'll chop it up as with our co-chair team here on this call. The first one is Estonia. Now, so our first stop on our journey is in Europe. And the reason why I bring up Estonia is because they're one of the first countries that actually had some type of blockchain adoption in their legislation and the way the government is using blockchain technology. And let me pause and say this before I go any further. One of the last vestiges for technology to be used is by governments. They're usually the slowest to adopt, and they usually take things very, very slow because with governments, the stakes are higher. They have to deal with citizens. They have to, deal with their constitution, their own laws, their own finance, their own banking systems. So they really want to make sure what they're doing is being properly implemented, because if it's not, it's not like a small business where you can try and fail and not have much of an impact. If the government process fails, it impacts the citizens greatly. So what we have here are some countries that have found ways to do it on a smaller but still important scale, where it's not going to have that much of an impact if it does falter in some way or hit some bumps in the road, because technology always hits bumps in the road. So back to Estonia. Estonia implemented what's called an e-residency program back in 2008. Yes, I said 2008. And they had it so any person in the world can apply for a residency in Estonia on their blockchain. Okay. Now that's very important, because it was one of the first ways blockchain technology was used on a government from a global scale. Now let's jump to another part of the world, United Arab Emirates. So now we're in the Middle East. The UAE has been a leader in blockchain technology, and they initiated what's called the Smart Dubai Initiative. Now, the Smart Dubai Initiative has 6 components: smart economy, smart living, smart governance, smart environment, smart people, and smart mobility. But here's one thing about the UAE Smart Dubai Initiative that I love. And if you heard me speak before, you've heard me say this a million times. Blockchain technology won't work unless we have user adoption and user interface. You can have the best blockchain product out there, even as a government. If nobody adopts it, it's going to fail. So when people adopt it, if the interface is very poor, again, it's going to fail. So you need user adoption and user interface. The one thing I love about the Smart Dubai Initiative is they made an app. They made a Smart Dubai app. And those 6 initiatives I read are in the app. So you can actually go, I have the app myself. I don't live in Dubai. I've been there, but I don't live there. And I just downloaded the app myself, and I can view it as a guest. So it's a great way to learn how to build an app for something that could be used by your own government or your own company. That's stop 2 on our journey. Stop 3 is Singapore. Now we're in Asia. So the Singapore government launched Project Ubin, UBIN, in 2016. And it's a way to transact secure transactions in the Singapore government, in their financial system. So this is really exciting, because it's one of the few countries that's really kind of putting it deeper into their financial system as a means to make it more efficient and more secure. So those are the 3 countries: Estonia, Dubai/UAE, and Singapore. So I'm going to kick it to my co-chairs for discussion.
Well, first of all, that's incredible that those 3 countries are engaging with the blockchain space and trying to build out different products. Are you seeing other state or other countries that are trying to follow along, or are they watching and learning, or are you seeing much yet?
I'm seeing a lot, and I just mentioned the 3 because I could spend a whole hour myself on this one topic. I mean, Australia is doing things.
I was just about to mention Australia. They have a blockchain roadmap that is very intense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Bermuda was one of the first to really get engaged in the blockchain space, more on the crypto side, but also, on the blockchain side as well. And the Marshall Islands were also, they were one of the first ones to pass some laws and actually have their first cryptocurrency. So, I mean, there's many countries that are doing many things in this space. There's some that are doing e-voting. I mean, I didn't really go into Estonia as deep as I could, but Estonia has an e-voting program. So now, and we know here in the U.S., voting is a very heavily contested, civilian exercise. We're supposed to have our rights to vote. Oftentimes it's contested. But what if voting could be on a blockchain where it's as transparent as it can be, because it can't be fully transparent for protect your identity and your right to vote. But let's say that we could audit it without having to go through all the rigmarole we went through. If it since 2000 with Gore versus Bush, right? We could have a more secure voting system if we implemented blockchain technology in that process. The issue is politics.
So one of the things that I just want to mention for those that are listening, try not to be confused between blockchain and cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrencies are built on blockchain, but blockchain does not have to be a cryptocurrency. So you have blockchain use cases, such as what Eric was talking about in terms of voting, because you're using the technology that's underlying it to help you with achieving a certain goal. Cryptocurrency is a currency that might be adopted in different countries or communities, like El Salvador adopted the Bitcoin currency on the Bitcoin blockchain, but that there are many different types of blockchain. And so again, it's important to understand that there's a not so subtle difference between the purpose of the blockchain and then the product or service that might be built on the blockchain. And then there are different types of entities. So there are DAOs and there are other entities that might use blockchain. So again, as you're doing your research for whatever the project is that you would like to explore, that's why it's important to understand that there's many layers to this, and laws impact and affect all of them.
And with the countries that don't really engage with blockchain and or cryptocurrency, but specifically blockchain here, how would companies and products, how do they navigate this?
So there are, last count, there are 9 countries that outlawed cryptocurrencies. That doesn't mean they outlawed blockchain technology, to Jackie's point, but it's really a country by country thing. And if you're a business in a country and your country is either made it illegal or frowns upon it heavily, you have to consider a bunch of factors, when you're starting up a blockchain business in that area, in that country, especially if it involves a token. Some countries that have outlawed it, I'm not going to mention them, or passed legislation that made it very difficult. They just moved to a different country, and they just set up shop there. That's one of the things about being in a global economy, where you have a very strong digital presence and strong digital options. You don't have to stay in it. You don't have to move a building or a skyscraper. You just have to move your server or just move your IP address, and you're somewhere else within, a couple of hours. So, you have options. But again, to the point you made earlier on, be sure you consult an attorney before you make that kind of decision.
And Eric, I think you made an excellent point when you said, if you're going to tokenize something, well, there's a difference between a token and a cryptocurrency. So you really need to work with several people before launching and before even going down that road. And the other piece to this is with countries that do not differentiate anything related to blockchain, you've got to go in and look at how your product fits into the laws and how the regulatory framework impacts that specific entity, or the token here, and this token might be different. So you've got to really map this out early.
You do. And I mean, Allison made a point earlier about KYC, AML, know your customer, anti-money laundering. One of the most common denominators in the regulations that are being written and the laws that are being passed is protecting the consumer. And that's a global issue, right? So a lot of there are companies out there in any technology. I mean, there's scams in for every currency out there as a fiat. The currencies are no exception. That are designed to take money from hardworking, honest, good people and put it in their illegal pockets. Now, so there are laws that protect that, right? But you want to make sure that your company knows those laws, so you're not doing anything that could be seem untoward in the compliance with those laws. So we can't stress it enough. Talking to an attorney in your country or the country you want to do business with, I've interfaced with attorneys in other countries on global blockchain projects because they needed a U.S. perspective for their company to do business in the U.S. Right? So this whole global legislation regulations, it could be a multi-country discussion with attorneys in each country to make sure that compliance is global, not just based on one country.
I would add to that too. Again, a lot of I do the talk show interviews for the GBA as well as interview for the Blockchain Legal Institute. And there are many companies that I've interviewed who are doing business. But right now, for example, HR companies, there are companies that might be hiring or looking to hire people within the blockchain industry. They need to understand some of the legal implications too, because of the background of the people who they're hiring for these companies. And when, on the surface, when you start a company, you have a product or a service and you have the framework, but then you have the tech side and then you have the marketing side. And there's a lot of different layers to this that as you start to navigate, as you were talking about, Eric, in terms of multiple laws, and Allison as well, where if you're just operating in one country, then it's a little bit simpler, but most of the companies these days are global. So it is really important for you to look at what are some of the regulatory and compliance areas, and it can happen in a way that you wouldn't even think that you're impacting, from the HR side or some of the other sides. So again, it is important to have a multidisciplinary, diverse team that can actually help advise you in a way that will keep you legally in compliance. So have we covered everything in this area?
There's one more thing you mentioned, because you don't realize what you just said. I just spoke at an HR conference last week in Chicago. It was an HR Connect conference. And I just spoke about blockchain technology in HR.
Yep.
And the 3 points what I mentioned, and there's many more I could have said, but I only had an hour like this one. So I mentioned 3 points like this one. Blockchain technology can dramatically improve your recruiting. It can improve your compensation, and it can improve your supply chain. So let's talk about number 2 for a second. Improve your compensation. If you have a global company and you have to pay salaries in many different countries to many different people, you have to go through a lot of different laws and regulations, as well as institutional exchanges to get the money to the people. But let's say you were paying them in a cryptocurrency. You wouldn't have to do that as readily because it's not designed to go through those systems. So that's one example of how,
as long as the countries in which they're receiving it is allowed. So again,
it's legal. Correct.
Exactly.
Correct. That is a very strong assumption. So I'm glad you pointed out. Yes. So the moral of the story is that people wouldn't think blockchain technology and think, oh, well, this is going to impact HR, because when I got in front of that room and gave that Save 5 icon speech that I gave to you guys in the UN conference, they began to realize, before they said this is not going to apply to HR. Afterwards, they said, you know what? This is something that can really impact HR. And I tell them, not just HR, it can impact everything, like the internet impacted everything in the early 2000s.
Yep, no, it does. So what's our next topic? And again, everyone who's listening or watching this, we're covering the surface of what it is that needs to be explored. We're here to kind of have you critically think about questions that maybe you've already thought about, but need to answer to, or you weren't sure that those were even questions until we raised them. So what's our third topic? You're on mute.
The need for legal industry standards. And just, again, on a really high level, simple approach, blockchain technology is borderless. So as we've just been covering, you have different rules and regulations all over the world. So if you're trying to build a company that is going to operate globally, it's pretty challenging. And so, and it also cuts off access to certain parts, because as Eric had said, if you're upset with how the legislation is going, you just pick up and move, because the company is more important than the country in the company's eyes, so they can adjust. And blockchain also provides unique technologies that they have many applications. Again, going with HR, going with any type of the supply chain management to, I mean, the uses are truly endless, and the ways that companies go about using blockchain are really endless. And so for the technology and the industry to be successful, you have to have users and products that people can understand, and they need to be able to understand how the technology works, not necessarily the nuts and bolts, but how your document goes from, as Jackie was saying, one train car to the next train car, and how you can be sure that it's safe. You can be sure that it is the verified, accurate information. And from the legal side, we really need to make sure that we have standards, and that if it's not just somebody saying, hey, this is the right data, I'm putting it on the blockchain, that there's ways to authenticate, there's ways to validate data, and there's ways to ensure that when somebody says that they are taking anti-money laundering precautions, that they're real. And so at the GBA, we've done some work with the blockchain maturity model, and it's an assessment, and it's multi-level, so there are 5 levels, and that can help companies from white papers to ones that are fully in, that have been around for years, and go over to make sure that they have everything properly set up and documented. So that's one of the big things that we as lawyers really, really emphasize. Document, make sure your processes are documented, make sure your data is documented, make sure that everything is clear.
I would add that when you think about your company, it's the structure, it's the people, and it's the service. So all those areas you have to think about. Do you have, like you said, of Allison, do you have everything in order paperwork wise? Or if you're green on the blockchain wise, but you also have to understand the technology behind it. Even if you were not doing the tech side of it, you have to understand enough about it so that way you can also see where are the problems. I'm a Bitcoin miner. I use the node. I am not a techie, but I wanted to get involved with that area because in order for me to be able to kind of understand the terminology, I have to endure the struggle. So again, it's all part of the process. Eric, what other things do you think that we need to cover in this topic area?
So first of all, the blockchain maturity model is really an exciting evolution for blockchain technology, because everything has been happening in individual silos. There hasn't been a consistent standard or a consistent, comparison between, companies either in same or different industries on how we can create a model that really works for the world when it comes to accessing, blockchain applications. Well, the blockchain maturity model has, it took 2 years to develop, and, they're developing a cadre of experienced assessors. Allison's been on a few. Jack and I have both been trained, and we're starting on our first one actually right now. So we really have a system where, we've been trained, we've been mentored, we've been kind of spooled up on this information, and we focus on the legal side, but there are other components of the BMM, as we call it, the BMM, that provide a great deal of insight for your blockchain model. So, and this is the other thing that's really important. It's always good to get an audit done, right? I mean, when you have your books, you get your books audited. A lot of organizations get audited by the government. There's technological audits. They even hire, like ethical hackers to make sure that their code is, properly being used and has less security issues. So why not do something along the same lines for your blockchain product or service? I mean, blockchain enterprise solutions, could use audits as well. And this is not really an audit per se. I'm just using that term very loosely, but the assessment can really point out where your blockchain enterprise solution could use some stronger efforts, or where it can, perhaps pivot to be more effective in how it's implemented. So we encourage you to consider the BMM as, part of your, blockchain enterprise solutions, process and system, because we feel that it's going to make it a better product.
You're
So
right.
we're coming from the legal angle, but there will also be a digital asset manager, an industry specific expert, and somebody coming from the technology side. So with those 4 prongs, while we're focused on the legal side, the whole process encompasses many pockets that you will need to think about.
Yeah, and you're right. There is definitely a need for legal industry standards, both for lawyers to understand as well as for the blockchain businesses who are developing to understand. Because like any other business, if you many businesses succeed and many businesses fail, and the purpose of the BMM is to ensure that you succeed, because it allows you to reflect. And I know I've mentioned it within our group. Being a teacher, we get reviewed annually, and then and there are different frameworks for the review. So this is very similar to that as well, and it's important for the creators of the business to reflect to see how can they make improvements, and where are the successes and where are the needs for next steps.
And off that, the assessments I've been on, I don't think there have been any attorneys from the company side. So we work with employees of the company, founders, to go over the documents, to go over the processes. And we are able to work with non-lawyers to go over the importance of the documents, to go over the importance of the structure, and to map out if they've thought through different elements. And that, I think that is, I mean, just tying in with what both Jackie and Eric are saying, so important to every piece of, if you've got a white paper, if you've got a company that's had a product for 2 or 3 years, but you haven't gone through a process to understand if you have extra liabilities that just haven't popped up, but they might pop up if you go to a new jurisdiction, or if somebody starts paying attention.
Yeah, the final thing I'll say is, this is still a very new, young, emerging industry. So a lot of attorneys don't have experience in this industry. So you need to gravitate to the ones that do have years of experience and have dealt with multiple clients. And you would get that with a BMM assessment, or dealing with the Cogent Law Group. So be mindful of the fact that you don't want to go see a malpractice attorney for your tax issues, right? You want to find someone with experience in the industry you're dealing with. In this case, it's blockchain technology.
And as Eric was saying earlier, things have been siloed in the past. With the legal elements of blockchain, they cannot be, because the overlaps are so intertwined with the technology, with securities law, with regulatory, with compliance. Everything is meshed together, and it's unlike anything I've ever seen. So it's very fun.
But I was going to say, it's lots of fun.
As we've talked about multiple times, the idea that it's borderless. The technology is borderless. It doesn't mean that the uses are borderless, but the technology is.
What's our next slide? How to contact us. So there's a QR code, or you could just type in gbaglobal.org. We have our emails here. For myself, it's jc@bli.tools. For Eric, it's Eric.Guthrie @gbaglobal.org. For Allison, it's Maffitt, Maffitt, in case
A lot
you're
of double L's or double letters.
yeah, in case you're listening to this at cogentlaw.co. Again, we are here to answer questions and support. We also encourage you to, if you're a blockchain company, to connect with GBA, go through the BMM process, because it's definitely one that will support your business growth. And you'll be able to get a certificate to the different levels that your company is on. And that in itself is a standard that you'll be able to show around the world that you have achieved. So any last minute thoughts, Allison or Eric?
Thank you for listening to this. We appreciate your time. We're all very excited about both blockchain and the BMM. There's a lot of very neat things that are coming up.
It was an honor to present to you. I'm speaking for all three of us. And we really look forward to helping you in any way that we can. That will be even a larger honor for us, because we really want to see this technology be successful. And we really want to see your government, your company, your organization be successful as well. So we're here to support you. You have our information. Please do not be afraid to contact us. You know the 3 lanes that we all practice law in from the way we've been speaking. So reach out to us and we'll do our best to put together a team to help you.
For sure. So everyone, on behalf of the GBA, thank you so much for allowing us to present and share. Reach out to us. Let us know how you're doing, where you are. We would love to visit. We'd love to support. And thank you so much. And have a great night, guys. Thank you.